Hi, I'm Annie Botticelli, and this is the Storyteller Forecast for Capricorn for March 2018. Go to my website, anniehelpsyou.com. Check out my new moon and full moon blogs that help you most maximize those transits, as well as lots of other things there. If you would like a more succinct than my detailed horoscopes, written horoscope for each of your signs, then you can go to cozybysweetstarlight.com. And when I say each of your signs, I mean if you're watching for your rising sign or your sun sign, you can also see the horoscopes that correspond there. If you'd like to learn astrology, I might have a couple of slots left in my astrology apprenticeship program where you can learn to read charts either for personal or professional use. So you can go to anniehelpsyou.com and see if I still have slots there. So what's going on in this crazy month? Every month seems to be crazy, doesn't it? When we're looking at the astrological perspective, we still have news coming in from those eclipses from January and February. We still have movement along the tracks of information that came in and events that came in from those. We've got 2 full moons again this month. We had 2 full moons in January, no full moons in February, a full moon at the beginning of March, and we have a full moon at the end of March. We've got Mercury going retrograde, which starts this wall of retrogrades I've been talking about for so long, that stretches right on through the middle of December. So in the general transits, I'm going to go into some specific dates of transits this month of note, but I'm also going to give an extensive list of what I love about retrogrades. I've already created blogs and videos for the things to watch out for and to be aware of for Mercury retrograde, Mars retrograde, and Venus retrograde, all of which we will have this year. You can search for Annie Botticelli in any of those things or look on my website, anniehelpsyou.com. So this video, I'm going to very much focus just specifically on things I love about the retrogrades, what to do during, how to use the energy the best. We'll talk about that in a general transit. But first, I want to talk about some things specific to Capricorn. And of the Capricorn reading, there are also different divisions. I'm going to talk about some general things for you Caps this month, a sector of the chart that's being highlighted. But I also want to drill down and talk about certain dates and certain transits that are long-term and what you need to know about those. We've got 2 outer planets in the sign of Capricorn in a long-term transit. So when that happens, there's massive amounts of transformation, activation, and long-term lessons that are being brought to you. So I want to make sure you understand those besides just more of the lighter highlights for the month. So let's talk about the lighter highlights for the month. I'm calling the theme of the month, Getting Your Message Heard. And that is because there is a focus on the 3rd house. Now this focus on the 3rd house is going to start out right from the beginning of the month for you early and most of you middle degree placements. For you later degree placements, what I'm going to share is also relevant for you. It just is a little bit more into the month that this starts to get cooking up for you. Early, middle, and late degree placements. You can figure out where you are in those designations. First 10 days of the sign, early, second 10 days, middle, last 10 days, late. If you're watching for your rising sign, 0 through 9 degrees is early, 10 through 19 is middle, and 20 through 29 degrees is late. This can be relevant for many different things in astrology, which is why I mention it. So, but I do differentiate like I did with the timing. So the 3rd house is going to be highlighted for all of you. It's just a matter of when in the month that's going to happen. So the later degrees, you'll have it later in the month. What is the 3rd house that's being highlighted here? And what do we have going on here? We're going to have the Sun and Mercury retrograde, Venus as short-term transits, moving through the 3rd house. The 3rd house has to do with, and these are the areas that you can expect to be to have focus brought to, anything involving siblings, cousins, aunts and uncles, basically family members that are not your parents or kids. So notable things going on with them, issues from the past, opportunities from the past. There is a very strong lean towards the past with everything that we're talking about because of the Mercury retrograde transit. Now, incidentally, Jupiter is also going to go retrograde. And that retrograde for Jupiter starts March 9th, which is the same period of time that Mercury shadow period starts, the Mercury retro shadow period starts. So after that first week of the month, it is pretty open for trying to push things out. We're moving in this slow, steady decline to inward and backward. So the third house highlight can bring things from the past about your relatives that we mentioned, your car, your other vehicles, your communication devices, your way of communicating, writing projects, publishing projects, editing projects, anything having to do with how you interact with other people. If you're a Cap with Cap in Mercury, or Mercury in Capricorn also, Mercury is how you communicate. The sun rules what we want. Okay, so when we're talking about the sun sign, all Cappies have more of a desire for Capricorn things. But if your Mercury is also in Capricorn, which you can tell by running a free birth chart online, which it does often happen that way, then how you communicate is in a more reserved, more succinct words, and that's how you want to be communicated with also. And so this period of time, you might find that it's an evaluation, reevaluation, and possible shifting of how you communicate with other people. There might be people that you are communicating with that don't understand you at all, mostly because you're not giving them a lot to go on because of your communication patterns. Now, there are some Capricorns that have their Mercury in Sag. If you have your Mercury in Sag, you probably over-communicate, like me. That's why my videos are long, because my Mercury is in Sagittarius. So how you communicate is usually how you want to be communicated with. But there's going to be, wherever your placements are, and it doesn't matter, a highlight for getting your message heard. So if you're putting something out there and you're not getting back what you're hoping, this could be a time where you could very notably revise and work on your communication. And that's written communication, spoken communication, within your relationships, at work. So there's this strong focus on communication. And that's how come the devices are also this focus. So you might have things breaking down, you might have to get new things. If you do have to get new devices or a new car, if you can do that towards the beginning of the month, the energies will be more clear for signing contracts and making big purchases, etc. But because we're rolling right into the retrograde after that, do try to understand your terms really well and keep track of your paperwork and any necessary things, because the odds of having to go back over things are going to be increased. Okay, so that's a general focus for the month. This house of communication, your transportation, how you're getting places, writing projects, editing, etc. Now I want to talk about Saturn moving through your sign. So for the first third of the sign, so basically the first 10 days of the sign, if your birthday is in the first 10 days of the sign, those are early degree placements. And if your degrees are from 0 to 10, 9 or 10 degrees, you've been having Saturn this year focus on hitting your sun sign or your ascendant, okay? This is no joke. When Saturn sits on top of your sun or on top of your ascendant, if you're watching for your rising sign, the pressures, the heaviness, the difficulties, the challenges, the lessons, the laying a foundational level for a whole new life or a long-term goal is all being put into focus. I'm speaking to you from a very fresh perspective because I've recently had Saturn cross over my sun. And I've also recently had Saturn cross over a massive amount of planets. So these Saturn lessons are very fresh in my mind. I also have a lot of early degree Capricorn placements. So I'm going through this with you. A lot of the things that we can feel when Saturn is moving over these placements is pressure, okay? Difficulty, challenges, authority figures or critical people, making their way, being pervasive into our fields. It could also have to do with big questions and trying to create something that's going to be of value for a really long time. So offerings for your work, for your income, for your relationships. It's a building process. And the building process is at the foundational level. Talked about this before with Saturn. If you've ever watched a building being built, when they're working under the ground, of course they have to work deeper in the ground, the taller the building is going to be, right? So they're working in the ground for what seems like forever. And you pass by the site and you're like, are they really still working in the ground? Like, is this building ever going to be finished? And that's what Saturn's doing with you now. It's like it's working in the ground. But once it gets up to a certain level, and in this case, this will be when Saturn is done doing its thing on your planets, which for 2018, if you're an early degree placement for your rising or your sun sign, and I want the rest of you to be paying attention to what I'm saying, because you middle degree placements are going to have what I'm talking about now as your focus for 2019, and you late degree placements, you're going to have what I'm talking about for 2020. So it's coming for you either way. It's just a matter of the timing. So Saturn is moving along and trying to bring certain things up to speed, but it can also make you feel like you're not doing enough. You know, like you're not enough, like you're not doing enough, like nothing you can do can be enough. And these are the games of the ego. Okay, of course, in the mind of spirit, we're always enough. And so it's helping to break down these pieces of untruths and then also put some realism in places where we really need to see it. So if you're going through this, then know that somebody understands. Know that people are going through this with you. It can be very heavy, but it can also be a time of manifestation. It's not just a difficult hassle. It's also very often coinciding with wonderful things forming and taking shape that you had dreamed of, that you had hoped for, that you've worked towards, taking shape right in front of you. You know, so there are wonderful benefits of this time too, and it's not just a drag and not just heavy, but it is important to understand because it does interfere with your vitality. It could show up illnesses or weaknesses. It could do anything like that. It's basically testing weak links. So if you have weak links, they're going to be brought up during this transit because Saturn is working to do that. So you can get through it. You need to have discipline. You need to have focus. You have to try to be a little lighter on yourself in certain areas, but be more realistic in certain other areas. And know that for this whole year, this story is being worked on for you early degree placements. So it doesn't mean that things are going to be heavy and difficult the whole time, because it's going to move back and forth over those positions for you. So it's like something will come up really strong and focused, and then it will kind of recede a little and then come back up strong focus. So you can also run a free birth chart to see how many other planets you have in early degrees of Capricorn, because the more planets you have there, the more Saturn's going to be moving, trying to form those areas of your life. Definitely check symptoms with a doctor, because it could open up, weak health links. And you might just, in some cases, you have to do more with this transit, but in some cases, you have to do less. So really just look out for yourself and guard yourself and protect yourself. And if you have to rest, do that. So Pluto has been moving through Capricorn as well. This is a very long-term transit. This started in 2008, and it's not going to be done for a while still, so we're 10 years in, and the date that it leaves Capricorn now escapes me, but it's going to be a while. It's moving only about 3 degrees a year. So what would that be? 3 or 4 years still. So for 2018, those of you who have birthdays from around the 7th through the 12th, or if you're watching for your rising sign, 18 degrees through 21 degrees, you're having Pluto cross over those placements in your chart. And again, I want you all who have already experienced this to pay attention, and those who haven't experienced it yet, still this is for you, because Pluto transits are something that we don't talk about very often, but they are some of the most profound transits that we have in all of astrology, because Pluto is the planet that's furthest out, and it acts in such a way that is more transformational and more nuclear in many ways than any of the other placements. And it also has the longest transits, because the further out it is, the longer it acts on a certain area of your chart. So when you're experiencing a Pluto transit, you're going through that transit for around 2 years. So it's lengthy. It brings births and deaths and rebirths and transformation, and sometimes those births and deaths are literal, sometimes they're figurative, but it's blowing things up. So if you've ever seen a site where a nuclear disaster has occurred, when it first occurs, everything is blown up, but then over time, it becomes I've seen pictures of where the disaster at Chernobyl took place. Yes, it's still radioactive, but which you can see when you measure that. But when you look at it, there's like rainforest. There's lushness that comes from the busting up of everything. So that's what you're going through. You're having things blown up within you and around you. If it's for your rising sign, your whole perspective on life is being totally blown up. how you see yourself, your image, your relationships, everything is getting totally blown up. And sometimes you stay in the same relationships, but just how you relate to the people are getting, blown up. So these Pluto transits are very intense, they're very long. And if your birthday is from around the 7th through the 12th or degrees 18 through 21, you are right in the height of this crazy thing. So if you're wondering, like, what is going on? Am I going crazy? Maybe, but you're also having a Pluto transit, and that's a better explanation for it. So you can research Pluto transits, but I just wanted to mention it because it's something we don't talk about very often. And I know it's just for some of you where it's active now, but it is really important to know that it's going on because it will revolutionize your whole life. So those are the things that are most on my mind for Capricorns. Now I want to tell you about all the things in March that I think are relevant to you, including giving you my list of the things I love to do and encourage you to do during personal planet retrograde. So since we have this starting March running through the middle of December, I wanted to give you a nice list of what's good to do to focus on the positive of how you can most utilize what we have before us. So the theme of March 2018 for all signs is charging towards the past. I'm going to go into lots of detail about the general transits this month that I feel are relevant. Also, how this month and the energies and the recommendations for this month are actually starting a theme that lasts from March through the middle of December of 2018. So tips for now are going to hold as tips for the rest of the year pretty much. And we'll also go into some specific dates and other themes this month that are shorter term. If you would like a written version of what I'm about to share, then definitely go to my website, anniehelpsyou.com, sign up for my free email newsletter, and I send out a written version of the details I'm going to go into a month before the time they're relevant for. So if you find that it's a lot to take in and you want to see it written, then definitely do that. Okay, so charging towards the past. The energy of Aries, which is what predominates this month, after a short carryover from February of these Pisces energies. So we start out the month with internal, emotional focus, poetic and artistic energies, spiritual and meditative interests being highlighted, and other Piscean energies. But very quickly, as we get deeper into the month, the Aries energies take over. And Aries energies bring zest and impulsiveness and excitement and inspiration and impatience. Basically a desire to do something. Aries is an action-oriented energy. And so this month, the predominance of the energy is going to make you feel like you want to do something, like you want to take action on something. But because after March 7th or 8th, the energies start going backwards, this slow, steady decline into a year worth of very strong personal planet retrograde energies. I'm calling it charging towards the past because if you feel like you want to do something, taking action on things that have an eye towards the past or shorter term things or clearing up things from the past are going to go further than trying to launch new things. Now that's after March 8th or so, because we are still in the open window free from personal planets being retrograde until March 8th. So if you have some things that you want to push forward, long-term things, things that you've been working on for a while, things that you don't want to wait until the middle of December to bring out and be able to have good momentum, then you still have some time at the beginning of the month, but it's kind of ironic because the Aries energies don't start to get stronger until later in the month. It's starting after the first week. So this first week of the month that is kind of covered in Pisces, emotional internal energy is actually some of the best energy for bringing things out. So you'll just have to feel your way through this. I give you all of this information so that you have it, but ultimately you have to tune into your intuition, into what the signs are showing you for when you're going to do what. So a theme that's going to come up throughout many transits throughout this month is of this over-exuberant Aries energy, bumping up in a challenging angle to Saturn or another planet in Capricorn, which still holds these Saturnian energies. So the way I imagine this is like a stern parent glaring at a child who's spinning around in a shop of fragile items. So the typical bull in a china shop energy is what really predominates at this time of the year, especially when we have a retrograde. So you're going to be rumping and bumping up against things, and that's going to especially be relevant on March 11th, on the days around March 11th, March 13th, March 23rd, the 24th, and the 29th, because on these dates, you've got personal planets hitting challenging angles with either Saturn or an outer planet in Capricorn, which still has the same energy. So it's not a time to try to force things, is what I'm trying to tell you. Okay, so if you're going to put extra energy that you have, and you probably will have, into something, it's best done to be put with an eye to the past, basically. So if you've got things to wrap up from the past, if something has come back in your field, that's an idea from the past, working on that. Something that has a contact or a connection to the past. Or is a short-term thing. You're trying something on, you're experimenting with something, you're trying to do something that only has a short, shelf life anyway. All of these things are great at this time. It's just the longer-term things that we want to hold a little bit closer to us. So if you are pushing too hard in areas that are not flowing, you're going to get really frustrated. That will be a theme of this month if you choose to flow against the tides. It will be very prudent to put extra effort this month into guarding your body, especially your head, because Aries rules the head. So just being really careful about the awkwardness that is at play this month. So your routine for keeping your zen might have to be a little bit boosted, so be as proactive as possible for keeping your zen. So we're still having eclipse challenges and opportunities rolling in from the January and February eclipses. So you might see news or developments around things that had already come in still here in March. So be looking out for those. If you haven't watched my January and February reports, then definitely do that for your sign, because in January, I talk about the lunar eclipse and how it can affect your sign or your rising sign, whatever you're watching for. And in the February report, I talk about how the solar eclipse can affect your sign. So you want to have those understandings, because those eclipses are going to carry much further than these months that they occur in. So to help you get a better idea of themes at play that have been at play for a little while, they're going to continue to be at play, check out the January, February reports as well. And that's all I'm going to say really about the eclipses, because you can see those reports for more information, and there is a lot of information there. We have 2 full moons again this month, okay? So we had 2 full moons in January. We had no full moons in February, and now we have 2 full moons in March. So this, again, is making more emotion, more things coming to fruition, more possibly drama, more things that come to light. So at the beginning and the end of the month, you might see important and emotional occurrences, notable discoveries, or things coming to notable fruition. So until around March 8th, when Mercury retrograde shadow period starts, and also Jupiter starts its retrograde, there's more clarity around submitting taxes, making agreements, signing paperwork than there is after that point. So if you know that you're going to have to sign paperwork at some point in March, it might behoove you to do it early March. If you have any doubt about it, it might be better to hold off altogether, because the contracts and the terms and all of those things will likely change. I'm not going to talk a lot about Mercury retrograde implications in this general report, but I have made a separate video for that. So if you search for Mercury retrograde, Annie Botticelli, I go into lots of detail. But what I am going to go into a lot of detail about this month is, instead of focusing on what to avoid when Mercury is in retrograde, I'm going to talk about what is great when personal planets are in retrograde in general, to prep you for the rest of this year. So I'm going to go into detail about that. So that window that is free from personal planets being retrograde or their shadow periods is running through March 8th. So again, try to get your stuff out by then if you can. There are some dates that I like that you can check out in the newsletter for moving forward if you have to in March, but do remember that when you push something out, just when the tide's about to come in, you don't have a chance for a lot of momentum. And that's what I want to talk about next. So to better understand what we're standing before at this period of time when Mercury starts its retrograde is not just a typical Mercury retrograde transit. It's a Mercury retrograde transit that when it's finished, then we have a Mars retrograde transit, then we have a Mercury retrograde transit, then we have a Venus retrograde. So I'm best imagining this by an experience I had at the Bay of Fundy. The Bay of Fundy is, well, you can see it from different points, but mostly it's in Canada, in Nova Scotia. And when I was in Nova Scotia, I happened to show up at the Bay of Fundy, not intentionally in realizing this, but I figured it out when I was there, that this is the place that accepts, there's one other place that claims to have this status, but it's believed that the Bay of Fundy has the highest tides within a tidal period than anywhere in the world. So there's 50 vertical feet of water that come in and out of this area within like 12 hours. It's crazy. So I happened to hit this point when the water was out, which was amazing because you can see the water lines and you can see how much water was going to come in. If the tide had been in, I wouldn't have had a good perspective of how this was going to work. But this is the image that I want to leave you with. It's actually just barely missed being named as one of the 7 wonders of the world. Okay, so imagine you are a person wanting to put your boat out and all of this 50 feet of water is out, the tide is out. And then you say, wow, what a great time, I'm going to put my boat out. Well, over the next 12 hours, which for us represents the next 9 months until the middle of December, all of that water is going to come in. So you're trying to get your boat out when 50 vertical feet of water is coming in, it's going to be really hard. So I really want you to think about that. So the things that you think that you have to get out between now and the middle of December, really feel into that. If there are certain things that have to come out, if they're small things, if they're things that aren't of consequence, if they're carryovers or additions to something you already have out, if they're things that aren't your biggest thing that you're trying to do, then that's fine. It's fine to just keep doing what you're doing. But you're going to have all of this 50 feet of water coming in between now and the middle of December. So your attention is better focused rather than trying to put something out to sea, your boat out to sea, your creation out to sea, is better focused on some other things. So now I'm going to talk to you about the things that I love for when personal planets are retrograde. So this stands for Mercury, Mars, and Venus, and this is all the theme that's going to happen from March through the middle of December. Okay, so I love this time for relaxing and being on free flow with no agenda. So it makes it a fantastic time for vacations and staycations. Yes, there are certain logistical things that when Mercury specifically is retrograde that you have to pay attention to more, which you can see in the Mercury retrograde video that I have. And also my new website, astrologykissedtravelbliss.com. You can see more information about this here because I wanted to knowing that this time was going to be amazing for vacations, I wanted to launch this website, Astrology Kissed Travel Bliss, so that you have it to assist you in taking great vacations during this time that's amazing for vacations. So especially when Mars is retrograde, which is going to be most of this period of time, the shadow period, you'll start to really feel that in May. It'll go straight through into the fall or spring for y'all down under. So the energy of Mars in retrograde is going to make people lazy and unambitious compared to how they usually are. Now, the one caveat to that is if you have Mars retrograde in your chart, sometimes you come alive when Mars is in retrograde, but most people get lazy. So I believe it's an overachiever's dream. And we'll go into way more details about this, and I have lots of resources, blogs, and videos about Mars retrograde. But the theme of the month for March and the things that are good for March are also good for the times to come. So I just want you to be preparing for that. So if you're an overachiever, you actually get a break from yourself during Mars retrograde. Okay, so this March, Mercury retrograde is going to be starting this theme of you kind of moving towards the inner realms and being more calm. You have an amazing opportunity to shift your area of focus from pushing out to pushing in. Okay, I also love this time for deep indulgences in hobbies and fun. This is a wonderful, amazing opportunity we have when it's like somebody, the universe, is giving us the green light to not be on turbo all the time, not to be completely overscheduled, not to be having 10,000 things on our list. So that leaves room for fun things. So basically things that are low stakes with no deadlines and no consequence if you don't finish. Those are the things I like for March and through the rest of the year. Things that flow in easily and unexpected. So again, with no consequence, if the term changes, no deadlines, no or low commitments. If something comes in, you're like, that's interesting. Okay, let me try that on. We'll do that. Okay, fine. That's wonderful for this month. Revising, reworking things previously pushed out into the world. That's part of why I've been encouraging you all, if you watch my videos regularly, I've been trying to get you to push things out in January and February if it's intuitively in line for you. Because this retrograde time is an amazing time for reworking, redoing, revising, revamping things that are already out. So that's what I mean about retrogrades being fine for business as usual. So you can do your business as usual. Just continue along whatever you're doing. And maybe you're bringing something out, maybe you're bringing a new offering, but the level of the new offerings that we want to try to keep the focus for this period of time from March through the middle of December is doing things you've already been doing or of the type you've already been doing, and not this is my big life's work that I'm finally bringing out to you. That's not the kind of thing that we want you to bring out. Now, one piece of information in case you absolutely have something you have to bring out. You can't bring it out by March 8th, and you can't wait until the middle of December. We have a week window from May 4th through May 11th, where Mercury retrograde has done with its post-shadow transit, and Mars pre-shadow transit has not started yet. So you have this week from May 4th to May 11th if you have to fit some things in. But again, be conscious of the fact that you're still putting it out when all of that, more of that vertical water is coming in. So it might not have the momentum that you're hoping for. So just kind of really feel in to how you want to work this. It might be perfectly appropriate for your situation to bring something out. Taking calm action on unfinished business of on any level that's squeaking for attention, or that you work on proactively before an issue comes up. Okay, so any unfinished business is the domain of the retrogrades, like being the earthworm. The earthworm is the theme of the retrogrades. So basically working over the soil, working over the soil, working over the soil, continuing to work over the soil, anything like that, or being proactive where there's something swept under the rug. Retrogrades are a time when things swept under the rug will definitely bring things out. So if you've been avoiding it, if there's a common theme in your relationships, if there's a common theme in your health, if there's a common theme in your work, these retrogrades are going to bring everything back up to be reevaluated. So doing inner work I mean as tools that you use with the understanding that we're creating our reality from our perception and our programming inside. So if you have patterns in your life that are reoccurring, we can't blame the current manifestations. We have to, I don't want to even use the word blame, we have to look to the things that we brought to the equation from our imprinting, from our astrological profile, from our childhood, etc. So the retrogrades are amazing for doing things like EMDR, EFT, neurolinguistic programming, and other self-development and trauma clearing tools. Working on future launches in the backdrop. This is an amazing time to be working on a website in the backdrop. You can be having a website that only has an admin panel, so nobody sees it, it's not live to the world, and you could be working on that through the retrogrades. That's perfectly appropriate and totally fine to be doing. So websites, courses, books, artistic endeavors, business plans, any other big project that will eventually be brought out, it's perfectly fine to be making headway on those things, just kind of keeping it more quiet and internal rather than telling everybody or making a big deal in the outer world about it. I also love the retrogrades for experimenting with low stakes projects. Oh, and also, by the way, these This list of the things I love for retrograde times is written, I put it in a blog form on my website, anniehelpsyou.com. So again, if you want a written version of this, you can go to anniehelpsyou.com, click on blog, click on astrology, and it will be there. Because I know some of you are visual and it's hard to take all of this in listening. So experimenting with low stakes projects. Play with ideas you have and test things out and experiment. This is a wonderful time for that. Again, low stakes, low commitments, and find if the terms change. Those are the themes that we want to keep in mind as we're playing and bringing things out in this time. Continuing things already launched. Business as usual is fine and totally appropriate, so you don't have to say, well, what can I do? I can't do anything. No, I'm not saying you can't do anything. I'm saying to avoid major launches. Okay, so studying, learning, and exploring. So March and beyond is amazing for learning and studying. The internal energies, Mercury in particular, rules the intellect and gathering and sharing information. So any courses of study, especially ones that are shorter terms. When I say shorter term, like Mercury usually rules like a 6 to 9 month course or less. Venus can have like an 18-month commitment, but that Venus retrograde is towards the end of the year. The Mars retrograde may invite cycles of around 2 years, so that's like kind of the summer or the winter for you all down under. So yeah, exploring, looking into things, traveling, armchair traveling, anything where you're studying, experiencing, low stakes, low commitment, things that fall in your lap. All right, so these are all the things that I love for you for March. And I'm also going to hit a couple of highlights with the dates, certain dates. I gave you a few where it's good to be wary of these run-ins with sort of Saturnian figures, challenges, blocks on the 11th, 13th, 23rd, 24th, and 29th. Remember, you can get a written version of these notable transits and what I think you can expect with them, as well as themes for the month when you sign up at anniehelpsyou.com for my newsletter. So March 1st, we have a full moon at 11 degrees of Virgo, also with an awesome Venus and Jupiter trine. So this is really great if you have to pull things forward before the tides start to roll in. I love this energy. Jupiter's going to go retrograde on March 8th. Jupiter going into retrograde means that the overt enthusiasm, optimism, and blessings that Jupiter is bringing in certain areas of our life are more likely going to be pulled back and less obvious. So we can feel a little bit more discouraged in certain areas of life, but Jupiter is trying to shore up foundational issues so that it can further expand when it goes direct. Okay, so from March 8th through July 10th, we'll have Jupiter retrograde. And this will affect everybody, but especially Saggies will most obviously feel that. March 11th, there is a challenging aspect with Mercury and Saturn that I listed, but there's also an amazing aspect with Mars and Uranus. So the way that I always say to work making your decisions around these transits is that you'll be feeling this in your own unique way, because general transits don't take into consideration your personal chart and how everything is hitting in your personal chart. So you have to trust your flow. If an astrologer says there's a certain good day for something and you're feeling crappy that day and everything's going wrong, don't do it, But if you felt great the day before, pull it through, So when we have an aspect on a certain day, like I'm saying March 11th is pretty busy, there are multiple transits on this day with different kinds of energies, you might feel that energy on March 7th, So the dates that these occur are just guidelines for an energy that's happening around a certain period of time. But I really like a lot of this energy around the 11th. But the one thing to look out for is if there seems to be something really pushing against you, just really tune in and make sure you're supposed to be moving forward. Okay, we've got the new moon on March 17th at almost 27 degrees of Pisces. This is the time to make your new moon wishes on Piscean topics. So you get 10 wishes, and it's the more you align your wishes with the energy of the sign, the more it makes the universe, it's easier for the universe to make them come true. So things like true inner happiness and peace, sleep, imagination, emotional sensitivity, connectedness of all things, surrender, trust, spiritual awareness, meditation, angelic assistance, things involving your feet or immune system and lymphatic systems are also in the Pisces domain. So making your wishes around those types of things. So a little chance for some ego battles with self or others to come up at this new moon, but there's also an amazing Jupiter boost. Okay, so March 22nd is when Mercury goes retrograde. So basically starting March 8th, we've got the shadow period. So from March 8th through the 22nd, that's the shadow period. Then the retrograde goes from the 22nd through April 15th, and then the post-shadow period goes through May 4th. And that's why I said after May 4th, you have that little open window free from the personal planets retrograde. So those are the things that are most on my mind for this month. We've got an amazing opportunity to chill out, an amazing opportunity to use energy that is present to charge towards the past. And we have amazing opportunities to just take a break from what has become the norm of life. And I think that's hopefully will be very welcome if you use it the right way. So definitely go to my website, anniehelpsyou.com. I have blogs on there for the new moons and the full moons, plus lots of other things. Definitely go to cozybysweetstarlight.com, where you can get your written version of your horoscopes in a much more simple, less detailed way, often talking about things that I don't talk about in the videos. If you're a travel lover or just an armchair warrior, definitely check out my beautiful new site, astrologykissedtravelbliss.com. And if you're interested in a reading, an astrology reading or a tarot reading, definitely go to my husband's website, iamhelios.com, iamhelios.com. I hope you have a wonderful month, and I'll see you next month. Bye.